My family excluded me from the Hawaii Christmas trip because of my sister. So I kicked her and her husband out of my rent-free house and ignored my parents' calls. Now they're begging me. Picture this. Every hard-earned penny, meticulously saved for a dream trip. Then, the unimaginable. Your own family not only pilfers it, but mocks your loss right to your face. How do you claw your way back from that kind of profound betrayal? Because for me, that excruciating moment was merely the prologue to a much larger narrative, a journey about finally unearthing my own voice, my own identity. It was a languid July evening, the kind where the very air feels thick with summer's humid embrace. I steered my car into my parents' driveway, returning for a brief respite after 3 grueling years of college. These visits, they'd congealed into a predictable ritual I knew all too intimately. Mom's suffocating embraces, Dad's perfunctory pats on the back, and the endless barrage of questions about my studies that never quite managed to camouflage their blatant apathy. "Maya, honey," Mom's voice, a touch too bright, trilled from the porch. "You're just in time for dinner. And guess who's coming over?" I didn't need a guess. My older sister, Jennifer, and her husband, Tom, had carved out a tradition of dropping by whenever I was home. It was as if they felt compelled to remind everyone, myself included, of their meticulously crafted success story. Sure enough, 2 hours later, we were all arrayed around the dining table. Mom had even unfurled her special occasion tablecloth, the delicate lace trim of which only ever saw the light of day when Jennifer graced our home. "So," Jennifer announced, setting down her fork with that theatrical flourish she'd perfected over the years. My blood always ran cold when she did that. "Tom and I have been thinking, we should all go to Hawaii for Christmas." Mom literally clapped her hands, eyes wide like an excited schoolgirl. "Oh, that would be wonderful." Dad beamed, swollen with pride. "What a fantastic idea, sweetheart." Then Jennifer's gaze pivoted to me, that familiar, condescending smirk playing on her lips. My stomach clenched. "Maya, do you think you can afford it? Or should Big Sister help you out?" A scorching wave of humiliation washed over me, but I kept my voice meticulously steady. "I can manage my own expenses, thank you." "Are you sure?" Jennifer raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Because we're looking at about $3,000 per person for flights and hotel." I almost choked on my water. $3,000? That's some dwarfed all my combined savings, and I was just scraping by on minimum wage for my part-time campus jobs. But I'd sooner subsist on ramen for the next 6 months than accept Jennifer's patronizing charity. "I'll manage," I reiterated, my voice laced with an artificial firmness. Jennifer merely shrugged, her attention already drifting back to my parents. "Well, anyway, the restaurant is doing absolutely amazing. We just hired a new sous chef from Italy. Can you believe it? Authentic Italian cuisine right here in our town." "You're so entrepreneurial, dear." Mom gushed, her eyes sparkling. "Maya, you should really take notes from your sister about business sense." "Yes, Maya." Jennifer chimed in, a distinct smirk in her voice. "Maybe you could even work for me someday." Sitting there, trapped at that dinner table, watching my parents fawn over Jennifer's grandiose Hawaii plans, I felt a familiar ache. I was 10 years old again. Nothing had shifted. The same eager nods from Mom, the same proud smile plastered on Dad's face, the same crushing sensation of being utterly, painfully invisible. Jennifer remained their golden child, just as she'd been since we were toddlers. 5 years separated us in age, but it might as well have been 50 for all the difference it made in how our parents perceived us. They never articulated it outright, but their actions screamed it. Jennifer was the one they believed in, the one they were certain would achieve greatness. "Hey, remember when Jennifer won the school business competition in 10th grade? Dad would often reminisce. We knew right then she had that entrepreneurial spirit. The ironic part? They weren't overtly cruel. They never deliberately inflicted pain or belittled me. They simply forgot I existed sometimes, as if I were merely a background character in the dazzling Jennifer show. They'd dutifully inquire about my grades or needs, but their eyes would inevitably gravitate back to Jennifer, patiently awaiting her next triumph to celebrate. Thank God for Grandpa Joe. He inhabited that grand old house, the one with the welcoming wraparound porch and the perpetually creaky swing. He was the sole person who seemed to possess enough boundless love for both of us. A successful businessman in his own right, he had promised early on to finance both our college educations. When Jennifer departed for college, I was 13. I naively believed things would finally change. Finally, I claimed my chance to bask in the spotlight. Boy, was I wrong. Jennifer just called. Mom would burst into my room, practically vibrating with excitement. She's joined the debate team. We should drive up this weekend to see Jennifer, Dad would suggest at breakfast. We could take her some money for expenses. They'd spend hours on Skype with her, the laptop precariously perched on the kitchen counter while they cooked dinner, Jennifer's voice filling our home even in her absence. Meanwhile, I'd quietly slip out the back door and seek refuge at Grandpa's house. Those afternoons with Grandpa became my sanctuary. We had our own cherished ritual that felt more like home than my actual home ever did. We'd sink into his worn leather couch, a tub of mint chocolate chip ice cream nestled between us, and lose ourselves in old movies on his ancient TV. You know what's great about Casablanca, Maya? He'd muse, pausing the film. It's not about the obvious hero. It's about the quiet one who does the right thing when nobody's watching. Other days, we'd order a greasy pepperoni pizza, and he'd regale me with tales of his own youth while we played chess. He taught me how to fish, too, taking me out on weekends to the serene lake behind his house. The thing about fishing, he'd impart, patiently helping me bait my hook, is that the best fish aren't always the ones making the biggest splash. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, swimming deep, that turn out to be the most special. I'd sit there in his little fishing boat, watching the sunlight dance on the water, and feel a quiet sense of peace, a belief that maybe, just maybe, I didn't need to be the favorite to be truly loved. Grandpa had an uncanny ability to make me feel seen, cherished, without ever making a grand production of it. "Want to watch Roman Holiday again?" he'd ask after a long day of fishing. "I bought those chocolate cookies you like." Those moments weren't grand or flashy like Jennifer's achievements. They were quiet, simple, and exquisitely real. While my parents were traversing state lines to deliver spending money to Jennifer, I was learning how to play poker with Grandpa, using M&Ms as chips. 5 years passed in a blur of endless family dinners and dazzling achievements. All Jennifer, of course. She graduated college with honors, secured a coveted position at a prestigious firm, and began dating Tom, whom my parents instantly declared perfect for her. Meanwhile, I was quietly preparing for my own college journey. The day I left for college, Grandpa hugged me tighter than he ever had before. His embrace felt different somehow, more urgent, more final. "I love you so much, Maya," he whispered in my ear. "Never forget that." I laughed it off at the time. "Grandpa, you're acting like we'll never see each other again. I'll be home for Thanksgiving." He simply offered that gentle smile of his and patted my cheek. "Just remember what I said, kiddo." 2 months into my freshman year, Mom called. Her voice was fractured, breaking as she delivered the news. Grandpa had died in his sleep. The world ceased spinning for a horrifying moment. I sat there on my dorm room bed, phone pressed to my ear, utterly incapable of processing the words. The funeral was held on a crisp, mournful autumn day. After the service, we all converged in Grandpa's attorney's office for the somber reading of the will. Jennifer sat primly in her designer black dress, while I fidgeted uncomfortably in the scratchy department store dress I'd hastily bought. "To my daughter, Sarah," the attorney intoned, "I leave the sum of $50,000. Mom nodded, squeezing Dad's hand. "To my granddaughter, Jennifer, I leave the sum of $300,000. Jennifer's face illuminated. She immediately turned to Tom, who had hovered solicitously by her side throughout the funeral. "Baby, we can have that dream wedding now and still have enough to start our restaurant." And to my granddaughter, Maya, the attorney continued, his voice steady, "I leave my house on Maple Street, including all its contents and the surrounding property." The room descended into a stunned silence for a beat before Jennifer erupted into peals of laughter. "Oh my God, Maya got the old house. That's hilarious." She wiped tears of mirth from her eyes. "Don't worry, sis. Maybe you can sell it and buy yourself something nice, though I doubt anyone would want that creaky old place. Jennifer, Mom scolded, half-heartedly, but she was already beaming at her elder daughter's burgeoning plans. We'll have the wedding in spring, Jennifer announced, completely usurping the somber moment. Tom and I already have the perfect business plan for an authentic Italian restaurant. This is exactly the capital we needed. True to her word, Jennifer threw herself into wedding planning with a fierce intensity. It was a spectacular affair. White doves, towering ice sculptures, a 5-tier cake, and what felt like half the town in attendance. I stood beside her in a bridesmaid dress she'd chosen, watching her marry Tom in what Mom proudly declared the social event of the season. Before the honeymoon tan had even begun to fade, Jennifer and Tom flung open the doors of their new restaurant. They christened it Bella Vita, Beautiful Life. The local paper ran a glowing feature, praising the young entrepreneurs for bringing authentic Italian cuisine to our quaint town. Mom and Dad meticulously framed the article and hung it in their living room, a new shrine. Meanwhile, I grappled with what to do with my own inheritance. The property taxes weren't insignificant, and maintaining that sprawling old house would certainly not be cheap. After meticulously running the numbers one weekend, I thought I'd stumbled upon a viable solution. At the next family dinner, I decided to broach the subject. I've been thinking about the house, I ventured, trying to infuse my voice with confidence as I pushed my green beans around my plate. Since I'm at college most of the year, I could rent it out. That would help cover the taxes and maintenance. The silence that followed was so profound it made me look up. Mom and Jennifer were exchanging one of those looks, the kind that had invariably spelled trouble for me throughout my childhood. Jennifer's husband, Tom, suddenly became intensely fascinated with his mashed potatoes. "Oh, honey," Mom said, her voice dripping with that patronizing tone she reserved for when she deemed me particularly dense. "Why would you want to rent to strangers when your sister and Tom need a place to live?" I blinked. "What?" Jennifer set down her wine glass with a delicate clink. "Well, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, Tom? And I could certainly use the extra space, especially now that we're running the restaurant. And obviously, you're not going to charge rent from your own sister. I mean, that would be ridiculous, right?" "Mom, of course it would." Mom agreed immediately. Family helps family. And just like that, they seamlessly transitioned back to their previous conversation about the restaurant's new wine list. Dad nodded along. Jennifer gestured animatedly about some exorbitantly expensive Chianti she'd imported, and Tom finally tore his gaze from his potatoes to join in. I sat there, fork suspended halfway to my mouth, as the chilling reality of what had just transpired began to sink in. I could protest, of course. I could vehemently point out that it was my house, my inheritance, my decision. I could remind them that Jennifer and Tom had just been bequeathed a staggering sum of money from Grandpa's will, while I had received, well, apparently nothing now. But I knew with a bitter certainty it wouldn't make an iota of difference. They'd simply fix me with that familiar blend of disappointment and annoyance they always did when I dared to deviate from their carefully constructed plans. Mom would sigh dramatically and lecture me about family loyalty. Jennifer would unleash a barrage of subtle, stinging jabs about my selfishness for weeks. Dad would give me that look, the one that wordlessly conveyed I was needlessly complicating things. So I did what I'd always done. I swallowed my protests, along with my now cold green beans, and remained utterly silent. The very next weekend, Jennifer and Tom, with Mom and Dad's enthusiastic assistance, moved into my house. She gleefully sent me pictures of how they were updating the place. Grandpa's beloved worn leather chair replaced by some modern monstrosity, his cherished fishing photos unceremoniously taken down to make room for framed reviews of their restaurant, their wedding photos proudly displayed on the mantel where Grandpa's chess set once resided. While I toiled away at midterms in my cramped dorm room, my sister and her husband luxuriated rent-free in my home. Every time I returned for breaks, I found myself in the absurd position of having to ask permission to visit what was legally my own property. Let's fast forward to the present, shall we? After that summer dinner, I plunged myself into work with a renewed, almost desperate determination. Between early morning shifts at the campus cafe and late evenings toiling away at the library, I barely had time to breathe. But every time I felt the exhaustion threatening to consume me, I'd conjure the image of Hawaii and force myself to pick up an extra shift. When Jennifer called in late November, I had the money ready. $3,000. Nearly every single penny I'd earned over the past several months. Send it today, she instructed imperiously. I need to finalize the bookings. I transferred the money instantly, my hands trembling with a bittersweet excitement as I clicked send on the banking app. That weekend, I allowed myself a small indulgence, a new swimsuit. Nothing fancy, just a simple blue one-piece on sale. My friend Lisa even graciously lent me her good suitcase, the one with the wheels that actually worked. December 23rd arrived, crisp and biting cold. I showed up at my parents' house with my borrowed suitcase and new swimsuit, practically effervescing with excitement. But something felt distinctly wrong. Mom barely met my gaze when she hugged me, and Dad kept clearing his throat, that telltale habit he adopted when deeply uncomfortable. Then Jennifer and Tom arrived. The moment they stepped through the door, I knew with a chilling certainty that something was amiss. Jennifer wore that familiar expression, the same one she'd worn when she informed me she'd be living in my house rent-free. Mom and Jennifer exchanged quick, furtive glances that sent a knot of dread twisting in my stomach. We sat down to dinner, and for a few minutes the only sound was the clinking of forks against plates. Then Jennifer deliberately set down her wine glass and cleared her throat. "We need to discuss something," she announced, her voice overly dramatic. "The restaurant. Well, we've hit a rather rough patch. The numbers aren't what we projected." Mom reached over and squeezed her hand supportively. I noticed she already knew what was coming. "We've had to make some tough decisions," Jennifer continued, her voice dripping with an almost theatrical regret. "We've had to cut some expenses, including our contribution to the Hawaii trip budget." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "So," she went on, gesturing expansively between herself, Tom, and our parents. "We've all discussed it, and we think the best solution is for Maya to sit this one out." The room began to spin. "But I already paid my share," I managed to stammer, my voice a fragile whisper. "Yes, well," Jennifer smiled, that condescending smile I knew so well. "That money will help cover the rest of our expenses. We couldn't possibly cancel on everyone. And Tom and I never even had a proper honeymoon because we went straight into the restaurant business." I looked desperately at Mom and Dad, waiting for them to interject, to object to this insanity. But they just sat there, Mom still patting Jennifer's hand, Dad studying his plate as if it held the profound secrets of a universe. "I paid my share," I repeated, my voice now shaking with a nascent rage. $3,000. That was all my savings. "Maya," Mom snapped, her tone sharp enough to make me flinch. "Family helps family. Jennifer and Tom are going through a difficult time with the restaurant. The least you can do is be understanding." "Understanding?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Yes, understanding," Mom affirmed. "Besides, someone needs to watch the house while we're gone." Mom then turned back to Jennifer, completely dismissing me. "Now, about the hotel arrangements." I stood up so abruptly my chair scraped violently against the floor. Nobody even looked up. I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom, the sounds of their cheerful conversation and laughter floating up behind me, as if they hadn't just stolen my money and crushed my dreams. Lying in my childhood bed that night, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Grandpa had helped me stick on the ceiling years ago, a quiet, unwavering resolve settled deep within me. I made my decision. The next morning, I played my part perfectly. I stood on the front porch, forcing a smile and waving enthusiastically as they loaded their luggage into 2 waiting taxis. "Don't forget to water Mom's plants," Jennifer called out, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "And check the mail every day," Mom added, her voice echoing with faux concern. "Don't worry about a thing," I assured them, my smile fixed. Jennifer leaned out the taxi window, her eyes glittering. "I'll send you lots of photos, so you won't feel left out." She laughed, as if she'd just delivered the wittiest joke. I kept waving until both taxis vanished around the corner. Then my smile dropped. I walked straight to my car and drove to Grandpa's house. My house. Tom and Jennifer's belongings were everywhere. Her clothes crammed the closets Grandpa's suits once occupied. Their pretentious art hung where his cherished fishing photos used to be. Their wedding photos sat conspicuously on the mantel where Grandpa had always kept our chess set. I started in the master bedroom, pulling out suitcases and boxes. Methodically, I packed everything. Designer clothes, expensive shoes, Tom's custom-made suits. All of it went into boxes and bags. I even located their important documents in Grandpa's old study and packed those too. The moving company charged me triple their usual rate for Christmas Eve service. I paid it without a second thought. My next stop was a 24-hour locksmith. He also charged a holiday premium, but I didn't care. I watched with grim satisfaction as he changed every single lock in my house. I drove back to campus, arriving just as my friends were starting their orphan Christmas celebration, our affectionate nickname for the holiday party we threw for students who couldn't or simply didn't want to go home. "Maya," Lisa exclaimed when I walked in. "I thought you'd be in Hawaii by now." "Change of plans," I said, accepting the steaming cup of hot chocolate she offered. "But you know what? I think I'm exactly where I need to be." For a solid week, my phone buzzed incessantly with Jennifer's updates from Hawaii. Each notification felt like a deliberate jab to the ribs. "Living our best life." Read the caption under a photo of Jennifer and Tom sipping cocktails on a beach. "Making memories with the people who matter most." Accompanied a staged sunset dinner picture. My Instagram feed became a torturous showcase of their perfect Hawaiian vacation. Jennifer lounging by infinity pools, Mom and Dad smiling broadly at a luau, Tom comically attempting to surf. Every photo was carefully filtered, captioned with nauseating platitudes about family time and much-needed breaks from running a business. The absolute worst was her post about knowing when to step back from work and enjoy life. That one came with a photo of all of them holding champagne glasses at a New Year's Eve party. A party paid for, let's not forget, with my savings. Then, early on New Year's Day, my phone exploded. "Maya, why are all of Jennifer's things in our living room?" "Mom, call me immediately." "Dad, what the hell did you do with our stuff?" "Jennifer, the locks aren't working. Did you change the—" "Tom, this is completely unacceptable. Call us now." "Mom, if you don't bring the new keys right now, you'll regret this." "Jennifer, Maya, Elizabeth Parker, answer your phone this instant." "Dad." The messages kept rolling in, my phone buzzing like an angry hornet. They grew increasingly frantic, then furious. Words like ungrateful, selfish, and spiteful flooded my screen. Jennifer's texts became particularly colorful, peppered with wild accusations about betraying family and ruining their lives. "How dare you throw your own sister out on the street after everything we've done for you?" "Mom, you're just jealous because we got to go to Hawaii, and you didn't." "Jennifer, this is the most selfish thing you've ever done." "Dad." My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 messages by mid-morning. I read each one, letting their venomous words wash over me without response. With each angry message, I felt lighter, freer. They could rage and threaten all they wanted. I wasn't that compliant little girl anymore. I put my phone on silent and went to get breakfast with my friends, leaving their messages unread and their calls unanswered. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel compelled to explain or justify myself to them. By evening, my phone showed over 200 missed calls. The constant buzzing had become a mere white noise. But when Mom's name flashed across my screen for the 201st time, I finally answered. "How dare you, Maya?" Mom's voice exploded through the speaker before I could even say hello. "Do you have any idea what you've put your sister through?" Dad's voice joined in from another extension, a furious rumble. "This behavior is completely unacceptable." I sat cross-legged on my dorm room bed, surprisingly calm. Is it like taking my $3,000 and going to Hawaii without me was acceptable? That was different. Mom spluttered. "The restaurant." "No." I cut her off, my voice steady, remarkably clear. "Let me talk. For once in my life, just let me talk." Amazingly, they fell silent. "You took my money. Money I worked double shifts to earn. You let Jennifer and Tom live in my house rent-free while they ran their restaurant. You've always treated me like I was nothing compared to Jennifer. Always. That's not. Dad started. Remember my high school graduation? I pressed on, my voice rising with years of suppressed emotion. You left early because Jennifer called about a job interview. My college acceptance letter? You barely looked at it because Jennifer had just started dating Tom. Every achievement, every milestone in my life has been overshadowed by Jennifer's latest whatever. The words poured out of me, years of hurt and resentment finally finding their voice, a torrent I couldn't stop. And then Hawaii. You didn't just take my money, you laughed about it. Jennifer sent me mocking photos. Do you have any idea how that felt? To know my own family could be so cruel. The silence on the other end stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice softer, but still defensive. Maya, you have to understand. Jennifer and Tom are really struggling with the restaurant. They need help, and I needed parents who cared about me as much as they cared about Jennifer. I shot back, tears finally pricking my eyes. I needed a sister who didn't treat me like a doormat. I needed a family who saw me as more than just Jennifer's backup plan. But where will they live? Mom's voice cracked, tinged with genuine despair. They can live with you, just like they are now. Or they can rent an apartment like normal adults. My house isn't their safety net anymore. And starting next month, I'm renting it out to actual paying tenants. You can't. Mom began. I can and I will. I've already talked to a property management company. The lease is being drawn up. I hung up before they could respond. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with messages from Jennifer. You vindictive witch, read the first one. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy now that you've destroyed our lives. Each message was nastier than the last, a stream of vitriol that would have utterly devastated me a year ago. Now, I simply turned off my phone and went to sleep. That was a year ago. I'm in my senior year now, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. Through the family grapevine, I hear things. The restaurant finally went under completely. Jennifer and Tom are still living with our parents, supposedly regrouping before their next venture. Meanwhile, the property management company I hired found excellent tenants for Grandpa's house. The rent they pay covers taxes with enough left over to build a decent savings account. I'm careful with the money. I think Grandpa would be proud of that. Sometimes, usually late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if we'll ever reconcile. If Mom will ever truly understand why I did what I did. If Jennifer will ever see me as an equal rather than a mere convenience. If Dad will ever stand up for me the way he always stood up for her. But then I remember that day when they were all sipping champagne in Hawaii with my money, and I realized something profoundly important. I don't need their understanding anymore. I don't need their approval or their conditional love or their reluctant acceptance. What I need, what I finally truly have, is my self-respect. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a definitive line with your family, even if it meant risking everything? Tell me what you think. I truly want to know. ***.